The watermelon has been for many years a symbol of Palestinian resistance and more recently solidarity. But there's more to this delicious, juicy summer fruit. According to our guest today, for the Palestinians in Jenin, the Jadoui watermelon fields were symbolic of Palestinian farmers' lived experiences. Palestinian women gave birth in the melon fields. Many sought refuge in the fields during the war. And many more remember the times when the watermelons were stored under beds to eat during the winter. This watermelon has stayed carved in people's memories until this day. There is no one from Jenin who would not have a story to share from their parents or their own experience of a once loved and enjoyed melon that shaped much of the culture at some point. Our guest Vivian Sansour uses seeds and food to preserve Palestine's food stories and culture. She uses image, sketch, film, soils, seeds, and plants to advocate for the protection of biodiversity as a cultural and political act. As part of this effort, she founded the Palestine Heirloom Seed Library with the goals of finding and bringing threatened crop varieties back to the dinner table and to collect stories to assert the ownership of seeds by communities. This episode was recorded on the 9th of September, 2024. I'm your host, Afaf Shawabibi, and you're listening to Tarwida. Ahlan fiki, Vivian. It's so good to have you today.
Ahlan Afaf. Good to be with you.
So, Vivian, when anyone looks you up, they might be confused as to who you are and what you do, because truly you're multidisciplinary. You're described as an artist, a writer, a conservationist, a storyteller, an activist, a researcher, a culinary historian, and a cook. Does one area define you more than the other?
Wallahi, honestly, no, I don't feel a commitment to any of those titles. It's usually a hard question, but it's only hard because the actual commitment we have to having a very defined label of someone is a symptom of our society. It's actually part of why we're unable to imagine outside of the realities we live. And I don't think I am multidisciplinary on my own, as in like, it's not a unique thing. I think we are all multifaceted human beings. And we all have different things that draw us, and we have different things that come up in us depending on certain situations and certain desires at different times in our lives. I would have a hard time putting myself in one category just because I go with the wind, and I also see the connection between everything. I'm always sewing, if you will. And so the threads are always coming in and out.
I like that. So I think you come from a creative family, right?
I like to think so.
Tell us briefly about your family, how you were raised.
I think my mother is probably the most creative being I've ever known. And I'm sure that she wouldn't describe herself as such. But if we think about what's creative, I think of creative as someone who's able to imagine outside of what they could see with their eyes, with their immediate sight. And my mother, ever since I was born, and I think my sisters and my brother, and even my father, were very inspired by her and had reactions to her in different ways. Because I think my mother fundamentally questioned always everything about reality, but she was also captive of that reality. And I think in some ways she channeled her imagination through allowing us as her children to just be so free in exploring our minds. I mean, she was a very strong disciplinary, but she was also someone who allowed us to play. So I think even though she didn't necessarily intend it, or maybe she intended it, I should ask her. I think that she was the force that planted the seed in us that the norm isn't something to go with, that the norm isn't necessarily right, that it's okay for you to verge off the line and in fact may be necessary to survive.
And so how did your creativity manifest when you were younger and, as a child, then as a young adult, and then eventually till today? Like, how did it develop?
There were three main elements. One was literally nature. I was not happy being inside, and my life was predominantly outside. And so whenever I came back from school, I would take off the uniform, have lunch, and go off in the hills where I would just, explore literally worms, trees, fruits. I was curious. I was just curious about also the chemistry of things. When you add water to soil and what happens when you light fire. I was fascinated by the elements in general. And I was allowed the space to play because Palestine, especially at that time, was still a very pure Palestine in the sense of we were still a strong community and our communities were very connected. And even though, maybe you didn't like your neighborhood auntie, but that auntie did look out for you. And so there was a sense of safety that I have never experienced anywhere else, to be honest. And so I played a lot with my hands. And so that was very important. And the other part is actually my sisters. My sisters they're a little bit older than me and they were fascinating. One sister liked to read a lot. She would always tell me facts, scientific facts that I would just be like glued, like, what is that? And then Carol, my other sister, who's a poet, I was trained by her in some way also to just sit and wonder and question. I mean, there are many other things, obviously, that played in my life, but those are the people who were definitely influential. And then my uncle Anton, who was a very innovative thinker, and he always brought new things to my world.
That's so nice. It's nice to have family around you like that. It's really beautiful. And can you tell us where you're from in Palestine?
I am from Beit Jala, a small town in the Bethlehem district.
And you lived there for most of your life?
Pretty much, yes. I was born in Jerusalem because we are 7 kilometers from Jerusalem. And our center of life was always Jerusalem, actually, up until 1996, I remember, when the checkpoint became more and more challenging. And by the time they built the wall, Jerusalem stopped being so accessible to us. But before 1996, Jerusalem was the center of our lives. So I grew up in the hills in Beit Jala, but whenever my mom wanted to take us shopping, whenever we wanted to do anything else, we did it in Jerusalem.
Yeah. So the Palestine Heirloom Seed Library, for our listeners who are maybe not familiar, what does heirloom seed mean?
So heirloom seeds are just seeds that are passed down through generations. And they also are seeds that stay true to character because they've been developed by our ancestors to meet the desires or needs of certain flavor or a certain color, and also developed with our different ecosystems. And they are precious seeds because it took a long time for them to develop into what they are today. And they're seeds you can count on, and you can produce seed from the next year and the next year with the same kind of characteristics. So, for example, an heirloom zucchini, you know that you can grow the zucchini. The next year, you can harvest the seed and plant those seeds and get the same zucchini.
So, how did the Palestine Heirloom Seed Library begin?
I've been thinking about this a lot because everybody always asks me this question. And I often actually give different answers, but there's one answer that seems to always be true. I mean, all of them are true, but one that rings more and more true to me. I think for me, the seed library really came out of a rebellion against a lie that I have been fed all my life, like many of us who have been colonized and oppressed. The founding of the seed library was a product of feeling disgusted with the fact that we're constantly being told that we are worthless, that we're stupid, that we should look up to our colonizer because look how great they are. They build these big buildings, these settlements. So there was a lot of fascination with the technology, the big buildings. But for me, all this technology and all these buildings were not fascinating at all, and they did not represent life. They represented the death of everything I loved. The plants I was telling you I grew up loving, the people I grew up loving, the lifestyle of community that I grew up loving and being part of. So for me, the seeds were a way to tell the story that actually these amazing accomplishments, so-called, of building settlements on food and highways are not accomplishments. They are an affront to life, and it's not something to look up to. And the more like I also spend time outside of Palestine, the more appreciation I had for Palestine, the generosity of people, the generosity of nature, the generosity of how we are together, the tenderness. And for me, seeds are living beings. They're not just things. And so I went back to the kitchen, which is the place that I learned to love magic. And I went back to the fields, which is also a place where I learned to love a lot of magic and wonder and awe. And I just kept looking and looking for, if you will, the evidence that we are not what they say we are. And it was really a journey for myself. It was a journey of both grief and recuperation, if you will. There's a lot of sadness about it, but there's a lot of joy to celebrate about it. And so in this moment, as we speak, while more and more of our world is being destroyed, these seeds have become even more precious because they are the evidence of our kin, our ancestors, our grandparents, our parents who have given us life, but they didn't just give us life, they gave the world life. I guess the long answer is the long answer. But yeah, the seed library came out of a desire to fall in love with our world that was dying, and to also fall in love with ourselves as a form of gaining the strength to want to live.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that there were several answers, like you've given different answers to this question about how it started. One of the articles I read said that you couldn't find jazar ahmar, which is red carrots, for the stuffed dish that your grandmother made, and the vegetable peddler gave you a stash of seeds which you planted.
Yeah, I mean, that's also a true story in the practical sense. I mean, this is a very hard moment for us. And so I'm deeply philosophical about why I do anything. But in the most straightforward, practical answer, yeah. I mean, I just wanted to eat Jazar Ahmar, mahshi.
Yeah.
Actually, Gaza is very famous for it, and they grew it in Gaza a lot. I was looking for it because I remember my mom cooking it, especially around February. And it's actually a recipe that's very much a Jerusalemite recipe. And that's why you see the ladies used to go to Jerusalem from the villages around Jerusalem, and they would sell it in the streets. And Jerusalemites developed this delicious recipe, which has the purple carrots cooked with a tamarind sauce. So it's like a sweet and sour taste. It's a very unique taste. And I used to love it. So I wanted to recreate this dish. But everywhere I went, they were like, oh, it's hard to come by. It's hard to come by. And finally, somebody directed me to a guy in the Bethlehem Central Market. But there was no purple carrots on his stand. So I said, oh, they sent me here for purple carrots, but I guess you don't have them. Do you know anyone who has them? And he was a little like, not sure what to say to me. And then he was like, well, to be honest, I do have them. And then he lifts up the tablecloth, and underneath is a crate, a whole crate of them with different shapes. And I was like, oh my God, you have all of this and you don't want to tell me? And he's like, well, to be honest, because somebody already, like, I promised it to someone, and I planted them for someone because nobody really asks for it so much. So I realized then that also farmers are not growing them because there's no demand. So the more that you don't know about it anymore, the more it disappears. And so I wanted to buy the whole crate. He didn't want to sell it to me because he had promised it to someone. Long story short, it just ended up being what I call the drug deal of the carrot. And it was a negotiation.
And the illicit Jazar Ahmar.
Exactly. And I'm like, I'll give you this much. Anyway, eventually he gave me a couple, and I went home, and a farmer friend was there, and he was like, why don't you just plant them? You don't have to like worry about it next year. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Because we noticed that they had a sprout. And so we put them in the ground and we left them. And then, of course, they grew. And, people who grow carrot know it produces a very beautiful flower, and the seeds live in the flower. And so we just harvested the seeds. So that was the first time I was like, this is quite magical, and I don't need to go begging for and doing
That's amazing.
And so it just started happening, and then more and more. And I suddenly found myself with jars of seeds and posting things on my Facebook at the time, and people started to really respond with a lot of emotion. And so the seed library came out really of just people sharing on their Facebook constantly, like how much this meant to them. And that really touched me and made me feel that, these seeds are saving us. I know a lot of people often say, oh, we're saving seeds, but it really felt like these seeds are saving us because they were reminding us of who we are, and reminding us that who we are is something worth living for. And I think that that's a really important thing to always remember, that even though we're talking about seeds and ecology, and it can sound really just like a nice environmental project, this is not just a nice environmental project. This is a very political project in the sense that it's also a spiritual project. And seeds for me represent both death and life, because literally with the seed, you think it's over. When the cycle ends, you think it's totally over. That's it. This is just a seed. It's like a pebble you sweep. But it's a pebble that you sweep maybe, but sometimes it comes out of concrete, and it comes out. And I know this sounds really like just symbolic talk, but actually it is real. And a proof of that is you and me. We're here talking. We are both not in Palestine, but we are seeds of Palestine, and we may be different. And when seeds move, when plants move, they change. Even when you take a plant from the wild and you domesticate it and you put it in a pot, it's going to change. And I think this is the moment we're in, where we're changing despite our desire to change. And we want to hold on to as much of our so-called origins and purity or whatever but we are changing, and that's just part of surviving. And so we're still the seeds, we're just a little bit different, and we're adjusting to new ways, but we're still here.
Yeah. So people who ask for the seeds, you send, I assume you send seeds to people also, like people who can't come to you, they will request certain seeds. Is that right? Like,
Yeah, so we have different ways that the seeds travel.
okay.
And these are magical seeds, remember? So they have wings. So originally, with the seed library in Palestine, we didn't wait for people to come. Initially, what we did is I would go to places and I would just share seeds with folks and say, do you want to plant this? Can you save seeds from this? The Jadui watermelon, for example, even though they're from Jenin, we found them with someone, his name is Abu Ghattas, in Beit Jala. And so, because we didn't have many seeds, I gave different farmers in different areas some of the seeds. And the idea was to figure out, like, how are they going to do, and to make sure that they do well, at least in one place. And of course, they did the best where in Jenin, because that's where they're from. But I feel like the seed library is more like a pollinator, in the sense that we are like bird who just take seed from one place and to the other. So actually, we move to people, and now with what's going on, our seeds are under threat, and so we started a new program where we're working with what we're calling the seed protectors, and we have people all around the world, but particularly right now in the United States, who are in different farms all the way. Yesterday, I was in Pennsylvania with folks at a farm called True Love Seeds. They've been growing mluchiyeh, bamiyeh, a lot of our seeds. And we have a meal together. We cook together. And so that's, for example, a community that we brought seeds to because we need our seeds to have refuge and we need the seeds to continue. We have people in California growing our batiri eggplants. We have people in Washington growing our wheat. And the idea is that, we want to make sure the seeds continue to live on. And so we are going to people and giving them seeds and making sure that the people we give seeds to are people who are able to take care of them from beginning to the whole process. I hate to say the end because with seeds there's no end; they just keep going. But so there is that part where we reach out to folks, and particularly in Palestine, when we started, we had to do this because a lot of the seeds we had, like the white cucumber, there were only 2-3 families growing them in all of Palestine. Obviously, the other way people can have seeds is by coming and picking up a packet of seeds. There have been people who have bought seeds from us and they sold them on their platforms. I get a lot of also like requests on Instagram, or can I get seeds? And I would love to answer everybody. But at this point, we are not able to meet everybody because we are really trying to focus on working with farmers. But we want to, and so we're working towards being able to make it easy for people to access the seeds from wherever they are, and we can ship it to them. And that hopefully will be possible by the spring.
That's so beautiful. The idea of seed protectors, farmers who are protecting and keeping the seed cycle alive. That's really beautiful. I mean, you talk about how important this is for us for our stories, for our continuity. We think about this so much in a abstract way, like, okay, it's important to preserve our food, it's important to preserve our cuisine, our but it feels sometimes like a bit of not an obligation, but it's just something that you don't really know what it actually means. When, for example, sit down to do something like rolling vine leaves, which a lot of people don't really do anymore. You can buy ready-made, stuffed vine leaves in certain places, or already cored zucchini, and so you kind of forget the process. You're out of touch with what it means to sit with your uh, family members and actually do this. You kind of lose the meaning of this whole way of life.
Yeah, and that's by design also. It's by design that our foodways have been moved over to companies and fast food, and the idea is that we just become workers, and food is just something you shove in your mouth so that you can stay alive. But that's not what food has been for most indigenous cultures, and definitely for our culture. Food has been a way to show love. Food's been a way to also love even the plant that you're cooking, and to love your family and to spend time. But if you notice, this is not very unique to Palestine, even. I mean, it's everywhere that our time as human beings has been also stolen from us. I mean, when we make a mluchiyeh event, and the idea, like yesterday, we harvested the mluchiyeh, we delived the mluchiyeh as a community. It was an all-day affair. And then we made a fire and cooked it right there. In today's world, this is an art project. Like, this is socially engaged art. I am commissioned as an artist to do stuff like this, which is wonderful to be able to do that. But the essence of it, when you really look at it, is like, when did just living become so revolutionary? I mean, it's so basic. It's not even like we just cooked, we just harvested the food we grew and we cooked it. But that becomes revolutionary and artistic, if you will, in a world where your imagination, your time, your spirit is supposed to be captive to a system of production. You're just supposed to be producing. So this plays a very perfect role in ethnically cleansing a community also, because if you take away the fact that we sit together, that means we talk together, and that means we bond together, then we're strong together, then we are also able to see each other, not to see each other as just, what do I consume from this person, but just as people with different variation of life. And so the traditions around making food are just as important as the food itself. I'm not interested in just like, oh, we have kutain, which is dried figs. Yeah, well, okay, that's great. I can taste it, and you can buy it in bulk these days. But this is not something that brings me pleasure. What brings me pleasure is the whole process of the fact that I know now it's fig season, and now is when we pick it, now is when we press it, now is we put it in the sun. And so just the mere fact of saying that you want to be in the world in a more interactive way, in a more sensory way, becomes revolutionary in a time when you're supposed to be mechanical. You're supposed to have a clock for the time. And so I feel like time and food are important things to look at. It's considered like, I don't have time to cook.
It's interesting. It made me think of, my mother used to make all the traditional dishes, and then over the years, she found like more simplified ways of making them. So she'd modify them, right? And they were still delicious, but it was just maybe faster to make and more like efficient for her. after she spent so many hours doing everything. And I think she just wanted to free up space for her art or something.
But she
I mean,
probably
I think,
also had to, no? I mean, because you just said it's a communal activity. Making
yeah,
which we like.
yeah,
You know, these are little pebbles of wheat, okay? You have to sit and keep adding wheat, rolling it with your hand until it's the big size you want. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of little pebbles to feed a lot of people.
yeah,
Why would you do that? Why would you do that alone? It's just, first of all, it's massively boring. Second, it's exhausting. So, people did it in community, did it together. You can't,
right.
I mean, think about the grape leaf example you used. If you were living entirely by yourself, would you, or even you and another person, would you actually take the time to roll that many? That would take you half a day just to do it by yourself, to feed yourself, which it's just, you would not be motivated. There's no companionship in food anymore. And it's really telling us about how this is how you kill tradition. This is how you kill companionship and relationship. And what is the only thing we have in the face of so much destruction of our culture, of our language, of our everything? Relationship. Relationship is the only thing we have. And food is something that does create relationship, whether it's our relationship with the food or our relationship with each other as we prepare it. And so going to the grocery store is just not going to cut it. That's why we say البوكل لحاله بيموت لحاله.
Yeah. So I think this brings us nicely to your project, The Traveling Kitchen. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, the Traveling Kitchen is basically in the spirit of how do we, first of all, create community and continue to be in community with each other and learn from each other. Initially, it was more of a practical choice because, like I was sharing with you earlier, the farmers were growing these heirloom seed varieties, but they were also complaining that, well, nobody wants to buy it. People forgot about them. I was like, okay, let's build a kitchen that can travel. And with the help of my dear friend Aid Arafe, who's an artist from the Haitian refugee camp, he was able to actually construct one for me with wheels that fit in the car. And I was able to just travel and just set it up in places. And the kitchen itself became in a way, a seed for conversation, a catalyst for curiosity. And in these conversations, people got to know each other and got to be in relationship and got to spend a day together doing something, whether it's picking lettuce or making a salad or making maftoul, or are we making msakhan? Are we picking onions today? Whatever we were doing, it was something we were doing together. And it was people who don't know each other. And oftentimes I intentionally meant for people who would normally not sit together at a dinner table.
Where would you do it? In Beit Lahem, in Bethlehem, or like
initially, initially I started just hosting these dinners at Arts and Seeds, which was a shop studio we had in Beit Sahur. But then, and I would just announce today we're making, I don't know, mensaf, and people will show up. But then when the kitchen was completed, it was in different villages, and every time it took different shapes. So if we are in a village that has, a small population, the kitchen was there, but the kitchens of the people around, like the mothers, they will come out with their bread and taboon. So it was more of outside. Yesterday we had a traveling kitchen event in Pennsylvania, and it was literally on the farm, and we had no kitchen whatsoever. We made a fire. And we brought big pots, and everybody brought something. And the next thing is we had a gigantic cauldron of mlokhiyeh and rice, and everybody ate. We were 40 people on a farm with no kitchen. So there was actually no physical kitchen, but we ate a hot meal together. And in some other places, it was very fancy, where we actually have a fancy kitchen and all the utensils we need. And it's like really elaborate, and it's an experience of a different kind. So it has taken many different shapes and forms. And I like this about it, because it just shapes itself to where it is, rather than just parachute. And this is what we do. There's no formula to what we do. What we do is we enter in relationship with space, elements, plants, people, culture, wherever we are. And right now, the traveling kitchen really is serving a purpose of moving through the world, not just in Palestine, to also tell our story as Palestinians, but also to learn from other people who have been through pain like we are going through, and to create a kind of a new culture that is committed to a new way of life, a new way of being. Yesterday, there was a Haitian family who identified with mlokhiyeh because they call it lalu. And it's also an important plant for them, because it moved to the Caribbean, sadly, in the most tragic ways, through their ancestors who were enslaved and captive. But they brought the mlokhiyeh seeds with them, and that kept them hopeful and alive in a time of slavery where you cannot imagine anything worse. So they came. I didn't know them. They showed up and came, but they were connected to us through this plant as well.
That's really interesting. So that's an example of the kind of stories that are shared when people get together. Are there any other stories like that stick out in your head that have been shared? I mean, I know you've interacted with a lot of people, but
yeah, there are so many stories. Oh my God. I love to see how people's eyes light up sometimes. They're not Palestinian, and they come and they see an ingredient or a plant they're familiar with, and they're like, what is this? You know, we eat this too, but we eat it so different. And I think it's so funny how shocked we are, because as human beings, we think as if we live in a different planet, because we're so micro in our world. But then you discover, actually, mlokhiyeh is not exclusive to Palestinians, that's for sure.
No.
I mean, Egyptians will tell you that too. And I mean, and definitely even the seeds and the crop varieties that we work with, we say they're Palestinian, and they are Palestinian in the sense that, they got domesticated in Palestine and they thrived in Palestine, and for millennia they stayed in Palestine. And obviously there are things that were originally from Palestine, like the wheat and the barleys. But definitely like tomatoes. Tomatoes have traveled across the world from Peru, literally. They moved from all over South America, made it to Europe, and then made it down to Palestine. But then they changed. You see, when we move, we change. We move, we change. And that's part of the loss, and it's part of the gain. And I think it's very hard to talk about this now, because we are not moving out of choice. We are moving by force. And that's such a violent way to change. But we're being forced to change. So in a way, these foodways become an opportunity for us to say, okay, whether we like it or not, we're being forced to change. And so what can we keep? Like, what parts of my face can I keep together in a way?
So now we've got so much destruction that's happening in Gaza. Not just Gaza, but more intensely in Gaza. And, the effects on the land, the contamination of the soil and water, uprooting of trees. From your experience, how do you clean? How do you repair or replenish after this?
Well, that's why doing interviews these days is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, I obviously don't have an answer. But most importantly, we don't know what's going to survive. We don't. I mean, last month, I was talking to a farmer in Gaza, and he was saying, first of all, the seeds are being bombed. People are on the run. To plant, you have to be somewhere, to see it through. It takes time, going back to time, and relationship with the place. But they're on the run. But okay, let's say they planted. The soil is contaminated now. It's toxic. There are ways eventually to clean up, but you understand, like, we don't even know the level of destruction that has occurred. When they say it's 3 times as the Hiroshima bomb, that's a lot. I mean, Japan is still trying to recover from the nuclear bomb. So how much we have to do, like, our work is cut out for us, whoever survives. And I think, to be honest with you, this is a question that should be addressed to the whole world. Not because Gaza is so special and the whole world isn't, but because the whole world is so special. And this is happening in different ways, in different levels all over. And today it's us Palestinians, and tomorrow it's going to be somebody else. Like, I could tell you, oh yeah, we have environmental way people clean up, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. I think we're going to have something way more radical and way more universal, not just unique to us, because we have completely, as a human species, fundamentally changed so much that we are hybrid humans now. I don't think we are operating in the same mindset of previous wars. I mean, one thing about what's happening today in Palestine and in Gaza in particular is we've been a testing field for the new kind of war. And that's why this should be very alarming to the whole world.
Yeah.
You have a bully who is trying out their big toys. And today they're trying out on us. And we know that they're involved all over the world. That's why I think the question is, who do we want to be? Do we know the answer to that before we clean up? Like, what kind of species, what kind of earth, what kind of human society is this? I kind of feel like this should be the question, because I'm not interested in cleaning up, getting back on my feet, just to live again in the same old world.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I know it's painful to talk about it. So you talked in the beginning about there's pain and there's beauty. So maybe we can move back to beauty.
You're like, where's the beauty? You haven't
talked about food. Let's talk about food again. So
I'm sorry, but there is a lot of pain in food too. Like, if you really if you eat anything in the world today, you drink a cup of coffee. Sorry, but there is blood and pain in everything we're eating.
Yes.
Anywhere you are. That's just sadly the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can talk about food in a different way too.
But now I'm embarrassed to go back. No. But
both exist at the same time. I mean, that's what we're trying to create. We're trying to create more spaces where it's not so bloody. And at least if it was bloody, how do we heal it and then make it not so bloody?
What are some of your favorite dishes?
Well, my favorite dish of all time, if I were on my deathbed and they said, what do you want to eat? Although I never understood this concept. Like, if I'm on my deathbed, the last thing I'm thinking about is what I'm going to eat. But maybe would be achub, gondilia. It's a wild plant that grows in Palestine in the hills. And it's thorny. It's like a thistle. And it grows at the end of winter. short window. And I like it when it's wild in the mountain. And it actually takes a lot of time to prepare because you have to cut all the thorns. It takes forever and it's very tedious. But I like it just as is, like just a little bit sauteed with a squeeze of lemon, and I'm the happiest there is.
Wow. Sounds delicious.
It is delicious. And unfortunately, also, because we have less access to our mountains, people have now domesticated it in farms and irrigate it. So it's still there and it's actually maybe even more available, but it doesn't taste the same as the wild one, because the wild one is what we call a thirsty plant, and we like a thirsty plant because it retains its flavor.
Okay, that's interesting.
In Palestine, we call it atshan, so it's good. So if the meramiya, the sage, is not so overly, the wild one has strong smell. So when you're like collecting za'atar, for example, thyme in the mountain, the smell, you can smell it. Like this is how you find it in the mountains. So you smell it sometimes. And you follow your nostrils. It's not an app, but
there's actually a thing called nostrils that you can use.
I know. I mean, because I tried to download the plant app on my phone, but then I'm like frustrated because, but the app can't smell it for me. The app can't touch it. So the app actually doesn't know for sure, is this mushroom poisonous? Is this the leaf I'm looking for? Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, these are crops that are still available and available even more today because of the irrigated one. But where they are and where we love them is in the mountain, where they actually thrive and taste better.
What can we learn about Palestinian culture from the recipes and dishes? And obviously, when I say Palestinian culture, I mean there is Palestine is not homogeneous, and different areas have different ways of doing things and different ingredients available. But I just mean like the culture itself. How is it reflected in the recipes and dishes of Palestine?
Oh, it's in every single thing you eat. Let's say you look at the msakhan, everybody loves msakhan. Well, it's a reflection of our culture, which is very much a culture that's in relationship with the olive tree, and how the olive tree is very important to us as even a family member. People, when there are weddings, they give their daughter an olive tree as a gift. The olive tree is referred to as a she, it's not just a tree, we have names for them. So the msakhan dish, we cook it with a lot of olive oil. You have to soak the bread in olive oil. And it was made and developed right after the olive harvest. That's why we eat it very much in the fall. So in, say, October, you're out in the field, you have finished your harvest, and you have olive oil, fresh olive oil, and you make this chicken and sumac. And it's also the same time sumac is ripe and dried. And so it's all about what are we doing in this season and in this time. So it is very much a symbol of actually what's happening. What have we been doing? We're eating what we've been doing. And people make it also in weddings, especially in the northern areas. And they make it in weddings because after the olive harvest and the pressing of the olives, you've sold your oil also. So you have money to have a wedding. So our culture is impacted also by the seasons and what we've survived on, and how we exchanged crops and goods and what we ate. So this is part of our culture,
Yeah. I'm just wondering, did the Palestinians who lived in urban centers like cities, who were not so in touch with, the agricultural sector and this way of life. Were they familiar with this? Did they also make these dishes following the olive harvest and whatnot?
The truth is, even though city people often feel superior to the rural dwellers like us, the reality is city people are at the mercy of what we give them to eat. They can't survive on their own. So their food ways and what they eat is shaped by the seasons and what the farmers bring. And so, of course, even urban dwellers, like people in Jerusalem, still the same seasons we're eating olives, and we are also eating fakus, for example. They're eating fakus because they eat what we produce. So of course, it's not separate, and of course, that's the exchange. Not everybody has to be growing food, but everybody has to have respect for the people who are growing food and also for the food that is being offered to us really so generously by nature. I like to think of it as a process of co-creation. Like what is the city person eating and desiring is part of what makes it, what shapes what we create, because we're always in a process of co-creation between the elements, the humans, the non-humans, the microbes in the soil, the seed, the plant, everything, the human desire for this plant or that plant, our taste buds, everything is working together to create the food we eat. And we're always eating, we're literally eating the sun, we're eating lettuce. It's like this plant that, like, it's a seed so light, you blow on it, it flies, but then it becomes a lettuce. It eats the sun rays, and then you crunch on it, and it just becomes part of your body, and then you die, and it becomes part. It's just like endless cycle.
Yeah. It's interesting when you were talking, you mentioned certain things and I just felt so emotional. Like it was like an emotional trigger because you said fa'us or fagus, as my father from Gaza would say. And, I imagine him and how happy he was when somebody would bring him, a box of fa'us because we lived abroad. There's such an emotional attachment. And I think, that's something about the food and how we just feel like it's like we want to just hang on to anything that will connect us. For those of us living in the diaspora, and many of our listeners are, we just want to hold on to anything that will connect us back to our roots. And these, simple things like a fa'us, which is like a version of cucumber or zucchini, let's say, right? And so it makes me think of the battle for cuisine. Whose food is it? The appropriation that we're seeing now, we've been seeing for some time. Food that, is called Israeli, but is Palestinian. Or maybe it wasn't originally Palestinian. Maybe it was some recipes are maybe originally Turkish or something else. But tell us about your experiences with this appropriation.
Honestly, it's a subject I usually don't engage because I feel like it's impossible to talk about food appropriation without talking about the whole context of this appropriation. Like, it's not that we don't want people to eat our food. This is not what we're saying. We actually enjoy and love people eating our food. It's the fact that, what the heck is Israeli anyway? We know it's a new concept that was created by a very violent method of displacement of the very foods they are claiming are their foods. I remember meeting somebody from, sadly, Slow Food. They were like, well, of course, everything is fusion. Well, of course, we are a fusion in the world. I'm not saying we are not, but this is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a people that came from Europe who destroyed our natural world. They destroyed our way of life. They destroyed literally our foodways. They're destroying them as we speak right now. And then turning around and taking everything that is us and saying it's them, which is a sick thing, but it has been done, of course, many times before. And it's not because I'm so committed to, I don't know, Musakhan being Palestinian. I don't care. But I do care if you are actually trying to pretend to be me. I mean, I do care because I love me and I love this Musakhan, and I care about its integrity. And so when we're also talking about these food appropriations, it's a way to delete our history and many, many years of people developing these recipes in relation to their biohabitat. So like coming up and saying this is Israeli food is not just offensive. It's actually just dumb. It's plain dumb and stupid. You either don't know history or you like Israel didn't exist when Musakhan existed. Like Musakhan literally is older than Israel. So how can this be Israeli food? And I'm not going to even sit and debate these discussions. This is why I don't get into this discussion. Because for me to discuss food appropriation and whether this is Israeli or Palestinian means that I acknowledge that Israel is a legitimate project. I don't acknowledge Israel as a legitimate project. I don't acknowledge Israel as a legitimate state. So how can I even debate you? I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is a colonial project that is literally a vulture project. So I can't enter. It's like there is no point of discussion. I think it's dangerous though, because we get sucked into trying to prove, no, this is Palestinian. No, I don't need to do that. I already know who I am. I'm not engaging in this conversation. I know exactly who I am, and you can try to imitate. I understand you have to because you don't have anything else of your own, because you're a fabricated project. It's a problem when we get caught up in the paradigm of a discussion they want us to get into. If I'm engaging with you to prove to you whether this is mine or yours, that means I even acknowledge that it could possibly be yours. And it's just absurd. It's so absurd. I'm not going there. It's like, for me, I'm not going there.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about your collaborations, okay? Because your work has been showcased internationally, for example, at the Chicago Architecture Biennale, Victoria and Albert Museum in London, Photo Industria, the Venice Art Biennale. So what was your favorite event?
Oh my God.
Of all the, I mean, there's many, I haven't mentioned them all, but is there one that sticks out in your mind?
I actually loved, oh my God, it's hard. I loved creating the show at the Architecture Biennale in Chicago, for many reasons. One was that I, really wanted to immerse myself in learning more about the history of the American prairies, and to learn more about Native American plants, and to know, well, what happened to the prairies, in relation to the Marj, which is the valley in Palestine. And how does the Marj, the plains of Palestine, enter into conversation with the prairies here in Turtle Island, and figure out like what happened. Like, again, it's a journey of like going to the pain of other people to learn about my own pain, and also to the beauty of other people who are still fighting for their land back.
Yeah. And you've also had collaborations with internationally acclaimed chefs. I'm not going to mention names. You tell me who for you was, the most memorable or impactful
This
collaboration.
is a trap question.
Not at all.
Well, they're very different. I think you're referring to Anthony Bourdain, and I love that experience because Bourdain was like a hero of mine, like a lot of people. I was a big fan. And to be honest, in the effort to bring him to Palestine, and I worked with Layla Al Haddad, who is a Palestinian chef from Gaza. And she worked also very hard to bring him to Gaza, and she did. And I was really worried when he came because every time I sent a pitch, they would just not want it. And I was like, I'm offering all the exotic foods of Palestine. Like, what do you want? And he was not interested in food. But I was really afraid of being so disappointed when I meet him. Because, sometimes people, you think they're great in what they do, but then what people do and who they be is very different. But he actually exceeded my expectation. And I loved how sensitive he was and how really just actually humble he was and how connected he was to the people. And I realized he was not interested in food because he was really interested to know about the people and the relationships.
That's beautiful. So, sometimes you're collaborating with someone like Anthony Bourdain, and then other times you're, back in Batir, working with the farmers and villagers. Obviously, it's a different experience, but do you prefer one over the other, or do you feel like they're kind of necessarily linked because in your effort to promote and preserve Palestinian culture and food and
Mm.
whatnot, you need to bring it to the world with the projects that you do internationally?
I can't say that I prefer one or the other. I'm just myself, and I often I know operate as a bridge. In many places I find myself, whether I'm in academic environment or I'm in the field or I am with someone famous. I'm just honestly I'm just making sure that I'm doing what I want in integrity, meaning that I'm not putting my energy into something that I don't believe in. But I think actually where I struggle most, to be honest, is in academic atmospheres. And that's only because I find that in academia, there's a lot of people who are working very hard to suppress who they are. And I just for me, it's like a waste of time. I'm not going to just talk just to talk. I don't want to just talk to sound intelligent. And I taught in colleges. And one of the first thing I tell my students is, I don't care how intelligent you are. I'm not interested. And there's no need to, sit here and try to prove yourself. Let's just explore together, learn together. Because I'm just not I'm not an academic by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know why, but I have been in academic context, and that's probably for me the most challenging context, simply because I don't relate to the methodology so much.
Mm-hmm. So, when we think about Palestinian food heritage, what can people do to contribute to preserving it?
Eat, get together, make time, and make the food with your friends and eat.
And with that, what are your hopes for Palestinian culture or bioculture?
Well, my first prayer is that we will be able to maintain our tenderness. And within the same prayer is, I pray that we will never become like our oppressor. This is really my prayer.
And finally, Who do you think we should invite to this podcast?
Oh, that's a fun question. I thought of a few people. That's so funny when you were talking to me. I thought of someone in particular, and you asked me about the Afro-Palestinian community, and who came to mind was a friend, and he's an artist. His name is Bisan Abu Aisha. He is in London, actually, and he has a beautiful project right now with letters with his parents when his father was in prison. And the other person I would want you to invite maybe is Aid Arafeh, who is a beautiful artist. And he doesn't like to do interviews though, so good luck. But when he
does he like to have a conversation? Because we can just have a conversation.
He does, but he's an introvert, so I don't know. But he's on his journey. I've seen him do some interviews, but I don't know if he would today. But like he's, if you can get him in deep conversation, you'll get a lot out of him.
Yeah. Vivian, thank you for sharing, the ugly and the beautiful, the pain and the beauty that you are experiencing and that we're all experiencing as well. And I hope that you have, planted the seed in people to think about what they're eating, where it's coming from, what it means, and what are the stories behind what's on their plate in front of them. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And thank you for this chance to just have a conversation. It's been really hard for me to have conversations, to be honest, because I'm not necessarily in the mood to have interviews and also because it's I'm processing, but it's important to process together, I guess. I don't think anybody has the answer. There is no one answer. But I'm hoping that whatever each one of us can contribute can be something to help the other person, stand on their feet.
Thank you so much. And I hope to meet you soon. Maybe if you come to Greece.
Inshallah.
Thank you for listening to Tarwida, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the best of Palestinian arts and culture. For more information, please follow us on social media and don't forget to subscribe. Salam.